Just want to do a short video on raspberries. I know I was confused the first few years of growing them on how to manage them. Blackberries as well, but we'll talk about raspberries just to not confuse people. There's fall bearing and there's summer bearing. It's basically two different types. Some people call the fall bearing or are called ever bearing or twice bearing. But what that means is if it's a fall bearing raspberry like this yellow raspberry here, this is a yellow fall bearing raspberry. There's two ways to manage this type of raspberry, the fall bearing or ever bearing. This is last year's fall cane, which grew all summer, and then in the fall started giving us berries at the end of the summer. This is one of the last berry sacs here, berry arms here, that was coming off of that, like these will this year. So it gave us berries until the first frost, stopped producing, and then this spring it'll give us berries here. So twice a year, twice bearing. Another way to manage this, which makes it real easy to manage, hi Lucy, so you don't have to worry about them getting tangled, is to cut these off of the ground like I have here. So rather than getting a spring harvest, I'll take that remaining energy and put it into this year's cane, and that'll give me a bigger harvest this fall, using that remaining energy for just the fall harvest like we had here. So again, there's the fall bearing, two ways to manage it. Get twice bearing out of it, spring and fall, or mow it to the ground. That's a much easier way. That way if you have a patch of them, they can get all tangled up, harvest all fall, mow it to the ground, and then you get spring berries again that first year in the fall. We're gonna go over here, we'll look at summer bearing and how we manage, two ways of managing those, two different ways I manage those. So these are summer bearing raspberry. And with a summer bearing raspberry, it gives you a floricane, a primocane the first year, and that cane overwinters and produces berries in the second year. A good way to manage these, the better way to manage these, not in a patch or a clump like this, is out front, and we'll look at that in a minute, using a T-trellis, where the first year canes go one direction, and the second year, when those canes are there fruiting, and your new primocane is coming out of the ground, after these have done finished fruiting, it's easy to go down that whole row of the T-trellis and get rid of these bushes. These aren't in your way. In a clump like this, without a trellis, these tend to tip over and they hit the ground. The reason I have this clump like this is that's another way to manage them if you want more berries. So I've let this one hit the ground here. This spring I cut it off. Melinda, why don't you come in and show how this is cut real quick? So that was that cane. This spring I've cut it. This was the bearing tip of that other plant, or one of the tips. Now it's produced roots on there, giving me a floricane for this year, which was the tip coming this way. Will give me berries this year. 3 more primocanes already for berries next year. So by doing that all over the place, tipping, that's what's called tipping, letting these tall berries grow over and tip and hit the ground, we create a mass of this. The problem is that with that is you do have to manage it every year, because if you let it go a third year without cutting the old dead stuff out of there, you'll have a lot of dead, in this case thorny branches all tangled together, and it become, everyone's seen the briars on the side of the road, blackberries, raspberries, stuff like that, or just plain old briars. We'll go out front now and we'll have a look at the other way to manage these. So this is the front trellis we just finished building. And these are the summer bearing raspberries. This is that one we pulled out of the ground with the 3 new starts on it. We've got them planted down the center here. So that allows, when these new canes this year get long enough, like this one would have been last year, fumbling, rather than going over and hitting the ground and growing those roots, it'll remain over the top here off this side. At the same time, the new primocane, this year's primocanes coming from the ground, will be trained up this side. So after this year's off this side finished fruiting, it's very easy to come along this side and cut all these off, dispose of them, with a new prima cane over here for next year. That spring, that'll become the flora cane. This new prima cane will grow up and be trained on this side. So this way allows us to stop the tipping from happening, so we don't get carried away in a big bush of them. Makes it very easy to harvest on the one side, as all the berries are hanging off the edge for us at chest height. And it also makes it easy to get rid of the dead 2-year-old cane for the new cane. Thanks for watching. If you like these videos, please like and share. Have a great day.